stopping the WHO's global power grab. On the ground in Geneva.
And welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your Friday host, Jody Heiss, and welcome aboard. All right, you know it by now. We've been talking about it all week. The 77th World Health Assembly is going to be wrapping up tomorrow, and it appears that the Assembly delegates are going to be departing Geneva, Switzerland, having failed to finalize the pandemic treaty that we've been tracking here on Washington Watch. But they may agree to a process to try to tackle it all in the months and years to come. So what other developments have closed out the week? Joining me now from Geneva to discuss this is Washington Stand Policy Editor Travis Weber, who also serves as the Vice President for Policy and Government Affairs here at FRC. In addition to joining us on Washington Watch Daily this week, he's also been providing regular updates at the Washington Stand. And so if you'd like to catch up on some of that, some reports, photos, and other media from Travis, you can do so by texting the word WHO to 67742. 67742. All right, Travis, good to see you again.
Thank you, Jody. Good to see you.
Well, I know it's late. Once again, thank you for staying up and joining us and for all the reports you've given us throughout the week. Let's begin with this. Are there any notable themes that have surfaced since we spoke last?
Yeah, so the big thing that has kind of shifted here is that the drafting group, which is a group of WHO member states that's been tasked with trying to find a way ahead on the IHR amendments and the pandemic accord, they've been in a room for the past 2 days discussing this with one another, negotiating, talking about it, sitting across the table from each other with microphones and probably translation, figuring out what they need to do to try to come to some agreement. That's been longer than maybe some have expected, and they still do not have agreement as of this evening. And we're going into the last day tomorrow, and this whole assembly has to be wrapped up by 2 p.m. Geneva time tomorrow. And so they don't have much time. And there are still some points of disagreement, even in their briefing this evening and reporting on how that was going. They said there were 2 sticky issues that were still outstanding. And we know the issues that were outstanding, which were the definition of a pandemic emergency, who's going to fund this, the sharing of resources, and technology transfer. And so presumably those are still at issue. And we're going to be watching to see what they come out with tomorrow morning, as anything they come out with would have to be passed through the committee that it's given to, and then the full assembly. So we'll have to see what happens, but still no agreement on the amendments to the international health regulations here. And as you noted, the pandemic treaty is going to be moved down the road months or years, almost certainly.
Yeah, so with the clock ticking as it is, it would seem to me that even if they were to come to some sort of internal agreement throughout the night, that for it to go through the committee and then for the delegates who would have to read for the first time what the agreement is, and they've got to have time to sort through it. What would this mean for their individual countries and so forth? It seems, at least from my perspective, sitting on the outside, highly unlikely that they're going to make it before the finish line.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't think it's proper to try to force country delegates to digest the terms that are changing once again in a time span of minutes or hours before they have to pack up and leave. And so this has been a concern going back months, if not years, and it's the basis of some commentary about the whole situation here. That being, you need to let enough notice, per the WHO's rules and the international health regulations, 4 months notice of any amendment. And so they have they've failed to give enough notice on any changes, even according to their own rules. But it paints a really a lack of propriety in terms of proper notice, consideration given, and certainly everyone's tired at this point, and they shouldn't be trying to rush these things through. And I don't, countries really, should be realizing that the poor circumstances under which they're operating and trying to digest this at this point. I mean, you have to understand what you're getting into, and I think we're in crunch time, and it's really difficult to do that.
Well, we've only got about a minute or so left. Travis, you, of course, are the Washington Stand policy editor, and it's been an incredible week for you attending a conference such as this. As it all wraps up, do you have any final thoughts about your time in Geneva?
Yeah. Jody, I think it's important, for those of our followers, Christians in the United States and elsewhere around the world to understand what's happening in places like this WHO meeting and the other global meetings that are happening. We have to understand, because we need to bring the perspective that God has, his heart and his thoughts and his mind to these situations and conversations. They're going to be happening one way or the other. And, it really would make sense for us to understand what's happening there so we can bring God's perspective and pray over the issues and everything that's happening in these forums. So it's given me a new respect for being attentive to them so we can bring the Lord's perspective to them.
Extremely well said. Thank you so much, Travis Weber. We appreciate it so much, and thanks for the incredible work you've done as the reporter for FRC and Washington Stand there in Geneva. Safe travels back as you come, my friend. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.